Welcome to MCN, and today we are in Iceland riding the brand new Norton Atlas. Now, before we get into the technical details and before we start riding this bike, it's worth pointing out how important this actually is to the company. We've already seen the Manx R, and that's gone down a storm everywhere. Fantastic motorcycle, but this one is much more within reach of the everyday rider. Given its price point, it's around £8,000. I'm sure it'll be on the bottom of the screen to tell you exactly how much it is. In fact, I think this, being the Apex version, is just over 9. But Atlas in Greek mythology was the titan that was destined to carry the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, the weight of the universe. And to a certain extent, that really applies to this bike. There's a huge amount resting on this bike, and if Norton get it right, and if Norton get the sales, and if the bike goes down well, then that's going to be really important for the company. So we're going to hit the roads and the trails around Iceland to see exactly how it performs. We're going to break it down in detail as the day goes on, but for now, welcome to Iceland. Let's ride the Norton Atlas. So we've ridden all kinds of roads on this today, from highways to byways to dirt trails, fire trails, that kind of thing. It's really given us a chance to put it through its paces. So what are we looking at here? Well, this is the Apex version, which comes in at £9,480. The standard version is £8,250. What has this got on it different to the standard bike? Well, just a few things really, and a few sort of creature comforts. And I'll come to those as we go along as I explain it. But let's get down to the nitty gritty first of all. Let's talk about the engine. 585cc, 69 horsepower, virtually 70 horsepower, and 42 foot-pound of torque. So what does that all mean on the road? Well, it's actually quite a nice, capable, punchy engine. 585cc, it feels like quite a punchy, grunty engine, and that comes down to the fact that it's got a very flat torque curve. When we're riding it on some of the twisty roads, the sort of single trail stuff that you could expect in Wales and in Scotland and in the more sort of remote places like the Peak Districts, those twisty, turny, up and down single track roads, it's really good fun. There's an instant control off the throttle and it gives it that brapability. It's the best word I can think of that really makes this a joy. And on the twisty stuff, we've had a lot of fun. On the faster sections, out on the more smooth, long, flowing curves, again, there's oodles of power to play with. It never feels like you're running out of oomph. But there is a big but here. The actual fueling found to be a little bit erratic, certainly for the first half of the day. And this was very much a day of two halves. At a constant throttle, it was surging quite a bit. First, second, third gear around town, around sort of 5,000 RPM, where you're holding a constant throttle in the first quarter of the throw. It seemed to be, basically, it was hard to keep it smooth and level. The fueling was patchy, glitchy, I would say, yeah, surging, for want of a better word. Weirdly, it did seem to get sorted out by the end of the day. I'm gonna explain exactly how in a second. And the other thing I noticed with the throttle was when you're closing the throttle, again, when you're riding with a bit more progression on some of the twisty roads, closing the throttle, there was a moment when it gives a squirt of fuel and almost tries to run on a bit. And it was a little bit disconcerting. But what we did was tried switching off the drag torque control. And that did have an effect of, certainly out on the twisty roads when we were having that bit of problem, it did seem to solve it. But software things is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit more as we go along. But in general, the engine is punchy and fun. It sits somewhere sort of between the Transalp maybe and the Triumph 660, the T7. It's in that kind of parallel twin world. It's not really surprising, being a 270-degree firing order. It's very similar to some of those sort of engines. But yeah, when you're on a positive throttle, it's absolutely fine. It was just that when you're just trying to hold it steady, and some of the time when you're rolling off as well, felt a little bit erratic. It's got a quick shifter, standard model, and the Apex both have the quick shifter. It's very slick, it's very nice, it's very precise. There were one or two people where we've been chatting today on some of the other bikes where they've been saying that the quick shifter has sort of cut in perhaps when it shouldn't have done, when they've been hard on the throttle, but I certainly didn't find that on this bike. And it's also got an auto blipper as well, and that just gives you a lovely little pop and a growl, which I don't know if it's more the fact of how it hits you in the senses. It's almost psychosomatic when you get the auto blipper cut in. It just sounds great as you're coming down through the gears. It sounds quite good. It's got quite a good exhaust note. It's a little bit growly, a little bit bassy, and that's quite enjoyable. The clutch is quite nice and light as well. Nice clutch, makes for easy manoeuvring both on the trails, on the road, around town as well. Nice light clutch. Suspension. We've got adjustable suspension on this. Now, when I mentioned about this being a day of two halves, the suspension really played a big part in that, because initially I was finding it quite skittish on some of the bumpier roads that we were on. And as you were pushing on and you were hitting some of the bumps in the turns, it was kind of losing its composure and tending to run wide a bit. It felt over-damped, as if it wasn't recovering quick enough. But we've changed some of the settings and that has really worked wonders. In the afternoon, it almost felt like a different bike. All of a sudden, it was more compliant, more composed. It's not what I would call particularly plush. It's actually quite a sporty ride, but it became far, far more confident in the afternoon with those settings in place. It almost had a tendency in the morning to almost seesaw, and with that throttle control as well, it was making it feel a bit unstable. But as I say, we made those changes. It started feeling a lot better, a lot more confident, and we got to really push it a lot harder this afternoon. I should point out that the roads have been dry as well, so we've not had too much trouble with wet roads. And yes, those suspension settings really, really did help this bike out. The tyres are Eurogrip, which is a TVS-owned company, so they've been designed specifically for this bike, and once they were warmed up, pretty good, both on-road and on the trails. Can't really fault those too much at all. So all in all, the way the chassis feels, it feels very neutral. It feels like you've got a low centre of gravity. You've got wide bars on it. It's actually very easy to swing it around. It becomes very predictable once you've got the suspension setting spot on. Norton have actually done a really good job of getting that chassis set up right. So once you've got the suspension dialed in, you've got the throttle sorted out, it actually becomes really quite enjoyable, predictable, confident bike to ride. Ergonomics wise, really, really good. There's something that this really excels at. And on a mid-size adventure bike, ergonomics is so important because you're going to be doing distance work. And, you know, if you want to take it on the trails as well, I should say, when you look at the bodywork on this bike, personally, I wouldn't want to be doing too much off-roading on it because there's a lot of bodywork to scuff if you drop it. But it is capable of doing those rough roads, dirt roads, fire roads, those kind of trails, and it does those really well. So back to those ergonomics, it's got quite a firm seat, quite a wide seat, fairly narrow standover, so that makes it quite easy. In fact, this whole mid-section of the bike is fairly narrow. It's got a bit of an off-road feel to it, but there's room to move around. You can slide off the seat either side if you want to. You can move backwards and forwards. That works very well. Standing up, really, really good as well. There's a nice little lip on the tank there for you to dig your knees into. So if you are riding off-road and you're standing up, great to be able to grip that with your knees. And that, again, helps with the overall handling and how the bike feels. Hand controls are adjustable. Foot controls are adjustable, so you can fine-tune your riding position. It's got an adjustable screen. You do have to stop because it needs both hands to adjust it up and down. Now, I'm 5'11" for what that's worth, and I find the screen in its lowest position absolutely fine. Works really well. With it in the upper position, I was getting a bit of turbulence. Could have been peak flutter because I was wearing an adventure-style helmet. Could just be because of my height. But in the lower position, the screen works really well. You've got hand guards that keep your hands nice and clear out the draft, and it's got heated grips. 3 stages. Didn't really feel that warm to me, even on the hottest stage. So they do work, no question about that at all. But personally, I like my heated grips a little bit warmer. It is quite chilly here in Iceland, and that was something that definitely worth bearing in mind. The braking system, this has a combined braking system, being the Apex, but those Byberry brakes, the Brembo brakes, really good stoppers at the front, absolutely no problem with all. Braided lines that give you plenty of feel, plenty of bite, no problems. The rear brake, I found trail braking was a little difficult. Yes, I'm wearing big clunky touring boots, but trying to get a feel on the pedal when you're just doing light trail braking was a little bit difficult. I didn't really get much back. You really have to use quite a bit of pressure to get that brake to work. On the flip side of that, when you're riding it on the dirt, it's got all the braking power you could need to lock up the rear, slide the rear when you want to. And if that's a trade-off and you are going to ride this on and off-road, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, it's got all the braking power you could need. Just lacks a little bit of feel on that rear brake when you're trail braking. Now, I mentioned electronics earlier on. Certainly when talking about the throttle, when you talk about the traction control as well, it almost feels like it's not quite there in terms of electronics. It needs a little bit more finesse. It may just be a software upgrade short of being spot on. It's close, but for example, you can pull out of a side turning, be in sport mode. It's got multiple modes as well. You've got sport, tour, urban, enduro, and rain. Didn't really see much point testing that today because there wasn't any rain. But between Sport and Tour, it works really well, and the urban mode is just a dialed down version of those. So switching between them, though, is a little bit of a chore because, I mean, on lots of bikes, you have to close the throttle completely to be able to switch it, but there's a bit of a delay on this at the moment. As you want to change your modes, you've got to close the throttle, press the button, open the throttle again, and it does throw up the occasional error code to tell you that it's not worked correctly or it's not working properly. So I would like to have a slicker change between modes, but perhaps that's something that could be sorted out with a software update. But yes, back to that traction control. Sometimes it's a little bit savage. You pull out of a junction, go to slam on the, go to progressively wind on the throttle in sport mode, and it'll instantly cut things just for a split second before it comes back in again. And it's very, very abrupt, and that can be a little bit of off-putting. So yeah, that traction control, I think, needs a little bit of work. The throttle response needs a little bit of work, low down that first quarter of a throw. But generally speaking, it does work very well when you take it off-road, enduro mode. Just engages the ABS of the rear, gives you the minimum intervention, and yeah, you can spin up the rear wheel on gravel trails and you can slide it and do everything that you kind of want to do. I mean, I said it before about taking this off-road. I don't know how many people will actually do that, but it is capable. It's there with bikes like the Transalp in terms of its off-road capability. In terms of its looks, which I've just said, it does look very unique. There isn't anything that looks quite like the Norton Atlas, maybe some electric bikes. It's got that sort of modern futuristic feel to it. And of course, you've got this very clean look where you can't see any visible fasteners. The indicators are in the handguards, that kind of thing. And it's a very smart looking machine, I think. They've done a really good job with making it look clean. So I'm going to go back to my original question that I asked right at the very start. Can this bike do the heavy lifting? Well, it has got very tough competition to beat. I've just mentioned some of the bikes it's up against. It's going to be hitting a lot of those middleweight adventure bikes and some of the bigger, smaller twin cylinder adventure bikes as well. It's a very tough field. I think because of the chassis is good, the suspension is good, the engine is good, but it still has a bit of a niche feel to it. And whether that captures the buying public is something that only time will really tell. I think the more we see this bike, the more we look at this bike. I mean, we've seen it a lot across social media and everywhere else, but it's seeing it out in the wild. It's seeing people actually riding these. And I think perhaps the more we get used to it, it's slightly different looks, which, let's face it, is across the whole Norton range. So it is a new manufacturer. Despite the name that's got that heritage, it's a brand new manufacturer with a brand new range of bikes. So it's going to be a grower. I think it's going to be a grower as it is across the whole range. So until we get it up against its competition with some head-to-heads, we're not going to know quite how good it is. But it is a good performer. It is a solid bike. I think, as I said, time will tell whether it can actually do that heavy lifting for Norton. It's priced right. It's got the power. Let's see. If you've enjoyed this video, do remember to leave us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out Motorcyclenews.com for all news, reviews, and everything else motorcycling. Pick up MCN in print, and to read a full, detailed review of this bike, get your MCN this week.